So, first off, the headline grabber is the new display setting that adds a 60 Hz mode where you can toggle between prioritize visuals and prioritize performance. And if you pick the visuals option, it purposely locks the frame rate at 30 Hz to keep things looking smoother rather than fluctuating. That's the new trade-off they're offering, so players can choose what matters most for their playstyle. On the stability front, a bunch of annoying crashes have been hammered out. There was this weird crash tied to reading the Crimson Dirk Psalm 4 during the Tilted Scales quest in the German localization, and that's been fixed, which is one of those oddly specific bugs that can ruin a session if you stumble into it. They also stamped out an audio-related crash and a nasty sequence where spamming the load option in the pause menu could put the game into an infinite load, crash, or freeze, so no more frantic button mashing causing the game to die. Another reproducible crash involved repeatedly casting the transmute ore spell in a certain outdoor spot near Haltered Stream Camp, and that's fixed too, which should save completionists and spell spam enthusiasts from losing progress. Performance got some targeted love. The patch improves FPS in a handful of locations where dips were common. Players reported frame drops during the hide-and-seek quest in Kynesgrove, during fights at Secunda's Kiss, when stumbling upon Drelis' cottage, and while going toe-to-toe with a giant at the Talking Stone Camp. Those spots have received optimizations, so they should feel noticeably steadier. This isn't a global 60 FPS miracle, but it's meaningful because it addresses places that historically chopped up combat or exploration for a lot of players. There are a bunch of visual oddities that the patch irons out as well. Water planes that would awkwardly bob up and down when viewed from certain distances or even inside menus have been fixed, which helps those immersion-breaking moments where the world feels like it's breathing wrong. Distant aspen trees that used to show up with a bluish tint should no longer look off, and the lingering outline of cave entrances that could hang around during fade-to-back loading screens has been removed. Small things, but they add up when you're trying to stay in the mood. UI and control polish is a big chunk of this patch. Switching between mouse and controller input used to cause callout prompts and menu highlights to get out of sync, particularly in dialogue screens and help menus. And that has been tightened up so the prompts update dynamically when you switch input methods. The notorious missing Ready Sheath option for Joy-Con 2 mouse controls was restored, and the delete prompt in the load menu no longer stubbornly stays grayed out when toggling between input modes. They also fixed a problem where deleting a save would reset the highlighted selection to the top of the list, a tiny frustration but one that keeps menus feeling smooth when you're managing saves. There were several other cursor and cursor area fixes for mouse mode when switching between docked and undocked, which should stop the cursor from getting trapped in a corner of the screen when you change how you're playing. Controller-specific bugs got attention too. The Eagle Eye archery perk wouldn't always turn off when you switched from mouse to controller, and that persisted perk effect has been corrected. Reassigning buttons could behave strangely if you held down the right joystick, sometimes making the assigned button vanish from the list. That's fixed. Joy-Con 2 units were sometimes giving haptic feedback while being used in mouse mode when that wasn't expected, and remapping controls while moving the Joy-Con 2 sometimes made buttons unresponsive. Both of those have been patched so remapping and motion controls feel consistent. There was also an issue where rotating the map in mouse mode felt slower and rougher than on controller, and that rotation smoothness has been improved. On the audio side, the scrolling SFX that used to keep playing if you held up or down on the left joystick or certain buttons in the save load menus has been stopped from looping endlessly, which makes those menus less maddening when you're flicking through saves. Localization got some small textual fixes. For instance, the Spanish pluralization of amiibo was corrected, and they added new translations for the updated UI bits and features. The credits also received updates, which is one of those end-of-roll touches companies handle when there are substantial patches or team contributions to acknowledge. If you're thinking about the bigger picture, this feels like a focused quality of life and stability update rather than a sweeping overhaul.